This is WCM's Park Update, a weekly show covering the outdoor hospitality industry, hosted by Ben Quiggle and Mike Gast. During each episode, you'll hear from special guests and campground experts on topics that will help your park flourish. WCM's Park Update is a production of Woodall's Campground Magazine.
Hi, I'm Ben Quiggle, editor of Woodall's Campground Magazine, and this is another episode of WCM's Park Update, sponsored by Bush Tech Safari, and of course my esteemed colleague Mike Gast, the former Vice President of Communications for Campgrounds of America, is here. And our guest today is Michael Moore, who has a whole list of titles. He's past president of the Campground Association Management Professionals Group, which represents state association directors throughout the U.S. He's the assistant executive director of the Texas Association of Campground Owners, which has the best abbreviation TACO. And then he is also the supplier representative on the National Association of RV Parks and Campgrounds Board. And then I'm sure there's other titles that go along with that, but I mean, you stay busy, I guess.
I feel bad now, Ben. That's quite a list, Michael. I feel like mine's just kind of this piddly former thing. I think I want to be called the unindicted co-conspirator from now on, Ben.
Well, that'll get you more headlines, Mike. But for mine, it's good. It definitely keeps me busy. But I think as the three of us know, this is a good industry to stay busy in. So thanks for having me on.
Well, speaking of busy, Michael, I see congratulations are in order. You recently got your MBA.
I did. Yes, thank you, Ben, for making that a part of the agenda. But that was that was a nice thing. So my wife works at the college here, TCU, and so I absolutely took advantage of their spousal tuition reimbursement program. So
and somehow with all those. How'd you fit that in with all those titles?
I don't know, actually. That's a good question. It was a lot of night classes, and I will say this too: we have a very good support system both here in our office and at home. So, for example, like my parents live close by, my wife's parents live close by, the boss here, Brian and Deborah, they were very supportive of it. So, I was very lucky, I guess, to be able to take advantage of it.
Well, walk us through your campground pedigree a little bit. How long have you been around the industry?
That's a funny story, too. So I actually have been it's actually Texas Advertising. That's probably the title and the company that supersedes all of them. And that is owned by Brian and Deborah Schaefer, which a lot of people are familiar with. And I started my freshman year of college. It was actually at a get-together, I'll call it, and I was working at a restaurant called the Nut House Grill that I was not a fan of, and I was looking for a job, and I came across Brian, and he said, "Hey, we're hiring. We need someone in the mailroom." And so I started there, and that was 20 years ago in December, and I just kind of never left. I mean, I left the mailroom, but I didn't leave Brian and Deborah and Texas Advertising.
I'd leave that in my title, by the way.
Look, I do. It's sort of at the bottom now, not at the top like it was, but yeah, no, I've been very lucky, for the stability for sure. And like I said, it's a nice industry to be in. It's not soul draining like I definitely hear from some friends of mine. So, I've been very lucky to be here this long and do what I've been doing. So.
Can you explain a little bit about CAMP? We mentioned at the beginning the Campground Association of Management Professionals. I guess just what is that group? Why does that group exist? And just explain what it does, I guess.
Yeah, so CAMP is a group of other state campground association executives. So the folks that are managing and running the various state campground associations around the country. So TACO, the campground associations that are in Florida and California, New Jersey, and Wisconsin. And we like to get together because, quite frankly, not many people are doing what we do, at least as far as the type of association and the type of members we have. And so it's a real close group. We get together a couple times a year, either on Zoom or in person, and kind of talk about the various issues we're all facing, because we're all facing similar issues all the time, and kind of discuss how we kind of combat that and what we can do and what's been working for some and what has not been working for others. And yeah, I mean, like I said, we're pretty close. I mean, a lot of folks have been there for, years, if not a couple decades by now. So, but yeah, we get together and try to figure out what we can do to provide the most value for our members. Because let's face it, at the end of the day, that's what running an organization and association's about, is providing as much value for the members as possible. So we're all in a very unique do that.
That begs the question then, Michael, what are the big issues that camp talks about at these meetings? What are keeping you up at night?
Sure. Well, I can tell you that for all of us, no matter what state it is, no matter what part of the country, there's always going to be legal and legislative issues that we all are facing, that our members are facing. So, whether it's, hey, how do I properly, throw someone out of my park because they're causing some trouble, or some taxation issues that may be coming up. But I can tell you that for all of us, that is always going to be one of the top benefits of joining, is to get some advice, get some input as far as any kind of legal, legislative happenings going on in our state. Marketing, supplemental marketing, I can say, is definitely another one, because we all have various websites devoted to nothing but campgrounds in our state that typically show up pretty high on the search engines. So between that, we have printed publications that, if you ask anyone that's been to an RV show lately, will tell you are just as popular as they were before. There's still a lot of people coming in and wanting info that they can grab and hold on to and take back to their rig. So yeah, I would say that. I can tell you another big thing is, the sort of proliferation, I guess I'd call it, of these multi-property owners and these big corporations that have since entered the industry. That's a big change that's happened the last couple of years too, and sort of figuring out what we as associations can do to help those folks. Because for some of them, I mean, they have a large, a wide net that they do a lot of things for their parks, but at the end of the day, there's still going to be some things that we as associations, I think, can support them. So yeah, and a lot, yeah.
Yeah. So just on that point, I guess, I know when I talk to state association professionals like Mary Arlington in Colorado, Kansas, and South Dakota, she talks about some of that too, about these new corporations coming in. So what are some of the things that state association execs are trying to do to reach out to those people or to the managers of these parks to get them involved in the associations?
Yeah. So I would say still going back to that legal legislative stuff, and not so much maybe their corporate office sometimes, but as you said, Ben, kind of their managers too, because those managers are on the ground and have to use those sort of laws that are in place in those states in practice, right? They're the ones that have to take advantage of it, or are able to. And so I think it's more about educating those folks on kind of what is the law and what they're able to do and stuff like that. And look, with these corporates, especially the bigger ones, I mean, they've got hundreds of properties. And so sometimes the state is able to sort of provide some information maybe a little quicker than they may be able to. The marketing, I would say, I mean, they all have their own marketing departments, and they're all very good and very quick, but, it doesn't hurt, I know also, to supplement that, whether it's with their printed directories that we have that, for some of these states, we print a couple 100,000 copies of. That's a lot of impressions for a relatively affordable rate. The website, I mean, digital is always going to be a big part of that too. So I think it's more about supplementing those corporates too, and kind of assisting them on their parks. Because again, with how big they are, they've got parks in every state by now. And so But a lot of times the associations in those states are the ones that will know the laws and the rules privy to those states more than anyone, quite honestly. And like I use this line sometimes when I talk to folks is you can't necessarily Google how to run a campground. And so that's what I'm hoping associations like Taco and the other states can help do.
What, when you're talking to these state executives, how is membership going? Are a lot of them noticing that they're able to get, these newer parks in as members? Is it an easy road so far? Are they struggling to get in new members? I guess, how are the health of these associations in general, I guess?
Yeah, I know. I'll sort of break it down. So I know as far as the corporate types go, they're very supportive of the state associations. I mean, I don't know one that isn't, quite honestly. They're very active and they participate, and that's great. As far as membership goes, and I'll sort of talk to Taco first, just because that's the one I know the best. But I know we've gained membership the last couple years, every year, pretty well. I mean, we're up to 450 campground members at the moment. And, I know a lot of that has to do with you have to create, obviously, a unique value proposition, right? Something they can't get anywhere else or from Google or anything like that. And I know for us, we have what we call our legal handbook, which kind of takes all those laws and regulations I was talking about into a nice organized binder that they can refer to and use at any time. And so I know for Taco, membership is up pretty good. I know the other states, the ones that I've talked to, have done pretty well. And again, they're able to do that because they're providing something that they can't get on their own or that they can help supplement. So I think the states are doing pretty well as far as membership goes. But it's every year is going to be a new test, meaning, hey, you got to prove it every year. This isn't a multi-year agreement. This is an annual thing. So we all are very busy every year trying to show the members what we're doing and trying to show them how it helps them run their business. And I know a lot of them are doing that pretty well.
I know when I was with KOA that last year in 2020 and the pandemic happened, one of the discoveries was that local, county, and state governments didn't have a really good feel for what a campground actually did, and it was kind of hell to try and get those governments to open up and see us as essential businesses. Yep. Has that kind of changed the framework of what organizations like Taco do? There was that. I think we were all surprised by the lack of knowledge that they didn't understand how a campground operated and what it actually did. Is that a really ongoing process now for an outfit like Taco to try to educate?
Ongoing was the key word there, Mike. So because, for example, for Texas, I mean, we have 254 counties. And it would be naive for us to assume that, hey, every county is going to be on the same page with what a campground is and how they operate. And so, it is an ongoing thing. And we get a couple of calls a week from a campground going, hey, my county is trying to tell me I need to do this or that, or my city or my, the police force or something like that. And so that's a constant education process, which, again, ties back to the membership and trying to show these folks that, hey, you do have a resource that can help when something like that happens. And I know for Texas, we're still a pretty hot state when it comes to building, expanding, etc. And so you can imagine, the zoning requirements for that and the laws you have to sort of adhere to. And again, unfortunately, each county has their own thoughts on what is needed or what's required. And so that's an ongoing battle. I can tell you that one of the laws that Texas as a state passed this last session was the fact that, in short, Texas sort of statewide code can not be superseded by local or county ordinances. Because what we were finding was a lot of these counties were going above and beyond what, whether it was NFPA 1194 or whether these state laws would ask for. These counties and cities were going above and beyond that, again, because they weren't educated on what is actually needed to operate a campground. And so that will be a big help. And that will be on us, on Taco, sort of educate our folks, meaning our members, of things like that, so that they can go to their local officials and sort of remind them, hey, tap the brake, man, like you can't do that, or hey, we don't need to do that, here's the law, something like that. So yeah, the long answer to your short question, yeah, it's an ongoing thing, and sadly I don't think it'll go away, but that's okay. That's literally what we're here for as an association.
And I think right before we go to the break, I would like to mention people who are interested in camp, learning more, can go to campgroundexecutives.com. And you guys actually have like a list of some of the pretty thorough list of all the associations, I think, for the most part, and a contact person on that website. So that's pretty good for like park owners, maybe in states who have never been connected, but they can go to campgroundexecutives.com and at least find somebody in their state that they can reach out to. So
yeah, absolutely. I mean, whether it's in their state, or I know that some associations, if a neighboring state maybe doesn't have an actual organization, will allow folks to be part of their own state association, which they provide benefits that way too.
Yeah, definitely. Well, let's take a break. We'll be right back to talk more with Michael.
No, ma'am. This is a 5-star establishment. We do not have tents.
Another one.
Another one.
With bespoke modern design, state-of-the-art craftsmanship, and only the finest quality materials, BushTech Safari manufactures tents that take luxury to the next level. A true combination of 5-star luxury and a 5 billion star experience.
Tents.
Better, best, BushTech.
Hi, welcome back to WCM's Park Update, sponsored by BushTech Safari, and we are talking with Michael Moore, who has a dozen or more titles, and one of those titles is being the supplier representative for the ARVIC board, and which is something, this is your second year or your first year of doing that?
No, second year, yep.
Second year. So are you up for election this year?
No, I have a 3-year term.
So
yeah, I have a 3-year term. Okay. So fall of 24.
So one more year till we can remove you, I guess, right? If you're an ARVIC member.
Huh?
One more year till we can remove you if you're an ARVIC member, right?
Yeah, right.
So, but anyways, I just kind of wanted to maybe talk a little bit about what you do on the ARVIC board, and just kind of, what are some of the issues you guys have been talking about on the national level, I guess. I know we've been hearing a lot about the housing crisis and how that's impacting parks. Is that kind of stuff that you talk about during these ARVIC board meetings?
As far as that goes, funny enough, I would say that is more talked about, at least in my experience, with those state associations, quite honestly, because they're the ones that are dealing with the sort of, like you said, in certain states, the influx of a clientele that maybe they didn't have before, and sort of dealing with that. Because as we all know, it's a different customer between a long-term resident and a transient, right? So no, I would say that that's more honestly something we talked about on the camp side. I can tell you though, on the supplier side, so just to kind of sort of go into a little more on that. So I represent the vendors, the businesses that sort of cater to the campgrounds themselves, and so reservation systems, the park model manufacturers. For us, so I'm the general manager, another title, of Texas Advertising. And so we provide marketing services to the campgrounds. And so I would say, as far as that side of things go, the suppliers and the vendors, I mean, their big thing is, hey, we want access. We want exposure to the campgrounds. And so I would say that's always going to be the top priority as far as the sort of folks I represent there. I would say that the housing, not so much. For the suppliers, it's always going to be, hey, what can you do for me to get in front of these campground eyeballs out there?
Yeah. What are some of the things that you guys have been talking about on the ARVIC board as far as that goes? Like, outlets for that kind of stuff. I know Arvik has like Go Camping America, and they do some other like webinars and different things. Is that stuff that you've been looking at on the supplier side?
I would say that's more like the sort of campground member side. For suppliers, though, I know a big thing is they call it the hosted buyer program that happens at the National Convention for Arvik every year, which has been very successful the last couple of years. It's pretty new, but I think in every year they've done it, it's only gotten bigger. So what that is pairing up attendees of that convention with suppliers on kind of a one-on-one sit-down time, because as a trade show, as we all know, I mean, you've got a lot of foot traffic, and sometimes, it's a lot to take in, especially for a show that size, whether it's Arvik, whether it's KOA. Those trade shows can be pretty big and pretty daunting, and sometimes it feels like there's not enough hours to visit everyone you wanted to. So something like that where you kind of get ahead and are able to schedule an actual time to talk to folks is great. And I can tell you that talking to other suppliers and other vendors, that has been very effective. If they're able to have sort of FaceTime with folks and explain what they do, that's very helpful. Because again, with the influx, it's not just the sort of increase of these corporate types. I mean, just new owners in general, right? New parks, new owners, etc., who are very new to the industry and are very very fresh into what they're trying to do and what they need as far as operating their campground. And so hooking up the vendors and suppliers with those campgrounds has been very helpful. It's very educational, and they're able to get a lot of info in more time than maybe they weren't being able to get to before.
Yeah, definitely.
So maybe we had to talk just a little bit about what Taco's seeing for supply and demand. Is there a lot of new construction, a lot of expansion going on, and how much more do you need to actually take care of the demand of the campers out there? Is it even possible?
Yeah, well, and again, I hate to say it, it really depends on the state. And so what I mean by that is you've got some states that, whether they're landlocked, whether the regulation is just too much, that building is just impossible. It's either too expensive or it's too comprehensive to make financial sense. I can tell you in Texas, though, that at least at the moment, and fingers crossed it isn't this way, or it isn't that way for a while, but we still have a lot of building, a lot of expanding going on, a lot of new parks going in. And again, we have the real estate to do that, right? Not everyone is as fortunate to have the kind of space that we have to do that. So we're still seeing that, where you can, as far as the expanding goes. So as far as the sort of demand, I don't know. Demand is, I think, still pretty high. I mean, I wouldn't say that it's gone down any. I think what I would say is there's more options out there for sure. And while the occupancy number may not be the record numbers they were the last year or two because of that COVID bounce back, they're still very high. I mean, certainly if you compare them to pre-COVID, people are doing better. And so I think the demand's being met. I think, honestly, it's more of a leveling where you've got a lot more options now. You've got a lot of good options. I mean, people are really upping the sort of threshold for what makes a decent park to stay at. And so, which is good. I mean, for the industry as a whole, that's great. It gives more people the opportunity to stay at a nice place and go back there. So at the moment, building, expanding, I think is still happening. But again, as we all know, that could stop. It just is a matter of sort of, looking at the short term and making sure you're prepared for the long term.
Is there still room out there for the small time operator with 30, 35 sites, or is that just not going to happen anymore?
Oh, I think there is. I definitely think there is. Now, the level of amenities may be a little higher than they used to be, that someone could sort of have and still have a regular clientele. But I think that's just sort of the evolution of the industry anyway. I absolutely think there is. And again, to tie it back to the associations, I think for those folks especially, that's where an association is most beneficial, quite honestly, whether it's in the marketing or the legislative side. Because again, those corporates have the support staff to do a lot of those things, whereas the small-time operator just doesn't. A lot of times it's a husband and wife, and that's the only staff there is at that campground. And so they're going to need help with those things that maybe, a corporate type already has, whether it's the marketing side, whether it's the legislative side, stuff like that. So I think there absolutely is. It just may look a little different than it did, even 5 or 10 years ago.
So you guys help help the campgrounds market to winter Texans, or is that just not even necessary anymore?
Oh, no, it's necessary. No, as a marketer, you need to always be marketing, Mike. You know that. So, but as far as winter Texans go, we absolutely have programs for those parks in the Rio Grande Valley. So that's where folks go if they want to have 80-degree weather in January. And we will do, on our marketing side for the association, we do email blasts to our email list that's in the tens of thousands, and our website. We will do things that sort of feature certain campgrounds that cater to those winter Texans. We'll do press releases with Jeff Kreider, who you all are very familiar with. He'll put word out that there's campgrounds that have spaces for the winter still. So yeah, absolutely. No, that's still a big thing. And again, I don't think you'll ever get rid of the RVer that wants to go to 80 degrees in January, as opposed to Wisconsin or New York in January, February.
Or Omaha.
Oh, come on. Omaha's beautiful in January. So I heard it's a great town in January, Omaha. So, I guess, what about the work park side? I know in Texas it's pretty big. Is these parks popping up for traveling workers or like catering to workers? Is that going to be a pretty big deal for the foreseeable future too? Are we going to continue to see development on that side?
For Texas anyway, that's always been a pretty big part of it, quite honestly, especially if you go to Houston, where, big oil town, big energy town. That's always been a part of it, where you definitely have your sort of ebbs and flows for certain parks that do cater to that. And that's, again, going back to the marketing side. That's absolutely fine to market your park that way and to cater to that. You just absolutely have to be prepared for when the work leaves, right? When that big construction project is done, you need to be prepared and have some folks ready to come in after that. So yeah, that's always been a part of it, and it absolutely will continue to be a part of it.
So let's talk workers for a second. What's the labor market like out there? Is the push for higher minimum wages making it so competitive out there the campgrounds are struggling to find folks?
I think it depends on the type of campground and kind of what they're going for. And so what I mean by that is you've got a lot that obviously still utilize the work camper market, right? So they have folks there, they stay, and that's sort of part of the arrangement they have. But some campgrounds will hire employees, actual employees as staff. And so, yeah, I would say that's been a challenge for sure. I mean, whether it's a small park or a large park, is getting someone that they can obviously bring in locally and rely on. I don't know that will ever be a problem that is completely solved. I think that'll just be an ongoing thing. But yeah, I mean, it's a challenge. But, also I think campgrounds are very intuitive and very resourceful. And I think they will do what they have to do to be able to provide the service that they want to provide.
When we look at what public and what public parks are doing, local, state, national parks, they're adding more amenities, they're adding accommodation units. I know there is a park in Galveston, Texas that's adding a county park that's adding like a bar or something to it. They're getting a little more competitive. Is that something you're noticing where the public parks are maybe getting a little more competitive in some areas with the private parks? Or, is there still a pretty good edge for the private parks, I guess?
I mean, there's still an edge for sure. There absolutely is. And I don't know that any state will ever fully either want to or are able to go toe to toe with the private campgrounds. But having said that, I mean, you do see states that are sort of putting more money into it. So even in Texas, I believe there's a ballot initiative coming up in January to sort of devote more state funds to that very thing, to state parks to sort of upgrade and renovate. And so, and look, for the camper, that's good news. That's more options. But, I don't know that they'll ever be able to go fully toe-to-toe with the private sector. Certainly with, the amount of new builds that we have, whether it's these big corporates or just, a mom and pop that, hey, their dream was to own a camper. I think they're always going to have an advantage over anything publicly funded like that.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I think, we're pretty much out of time, Michael. Thanks for coming on the show. Yeah, it was quick. This show's quick. We get people through quickly.
They're busy.
Yeah, they're busy. So, Michael, it was great having you on. It was great. Can you just tell the audience what shows you'll be at this fall? I imagine you'll be at a couple shows, right? Either Texas Advertising, or is it representing an association?
Yeah, I'm essentially going on tour for the whole month of November, which my wife is not exactly thrilled about, but so yeah, there's Arvik first up. I think it's the about the 6th through the 9th in Kansas City.
Yeah.
I'll be there for camp. We have a meeting there for taco, and then I'll be there on the AGS side and for some board meetings. And then the KOA show, I believe, is the following week. That'll be at Las Vegas, and I'll be there wearing my Texas Advertising AGS hat on as a exhibitor there. And then I will also, for the first time myself anyway, be at the Campground Owners Expo in Branson. And so we have another camp meeting scheduled for that. So I'll have my taco hat, and then I will immediately put on my AGS hat for the trade show there. So yeah, then I get to fit Thanksgiving in between all that. So it should be a busy time.
It should be fun though. So it's a lot of fun getting to meet people. So it's a lot of fun running into you, Michael, and it was great chatting with you. And thanks again for coming on the show. And thanks everyone for watching. We'll be back again next week.
Thank you for listening to WCM's Park Update, a production of Woodall's Campground Magazine. Join us for a new show each Tuesday at 3 p.m. Eastern on Facebook, YouTube, and wherever you listen to podcasts. Follow us on Facebook and LinkedIn for daily news and updates, and subscribe to our news feed on our website at woodallscm.com. Show hosts are Ben Quiggle and Mike Gast. Executive producers Rick Kessler and Alex Burkett. Copyright 2022, G&G Media Group.